Hey everybody, welcome back to the Living Life Trauma-Free podcast. I'm Wendy Kier, your host. If you haven't subscribed or liked the channel, please do go ahead now before you forget. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. And if you enjoyed the interview, please hit the thumbs up as well. I'm going to be talking to a great guy today called Travis Johnson. He has had a crazy childhood. We are going to talk about those experiences he had as a child, just lightly, and then how that impacted him more importantly in adult life. Some of the consequences that played out in terms of his behavior. What is going on? Drama. Drama-free zone, you. Let's go across now. Hey, welcome, Travis. It's great to be talking to you today. And I know we were just speaking about how much we have in common.
Oh, of course, Wendy. I can't wait to dive in and peel back the onion and see where we end up.
And I can't remember how you described it, but it was mountains of shit or piles or, heaps.
I mean, we're all just kind of in that Star Wars garbage dump where they end up and there's like a creature in there ready to drag you back in, and the sides are coming in on you, and you just like, you can't never tell whose pile is bigger or smellier or who's gonna, no one comes out clean from any of this stuff.
No, it's very true. So over 50 moves, I think you said you had, 12 schools, 6 states, 5 foster homes, survived 2 murder attempts. I think that's a pretty big pile in comparison to most people's level of doo-doo.
So I was looking, because occasionally, you forget things that have happened in your life, and you look at like bullying and abuse. Like, I've also lived through several bullies. I've also survived 4 other brushes with death. That we had a car that started on fire while we were driving it. I was driving a semi truck, and the front right wheel snapped off while we were going down the interstate, and we didn't die, obviously. I've had trailer tires go flat on me while I'm going 90 down the road, and I've got a car on a trailer behind me that should have flipped us, that didn't flip us. Apparently I'm being protected for some reason. I've got no idea why, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it's interesting what you just said about you don't remember a lot of some of the things that have happened to you. I know from the amount of foster placements that I've had and the move arounds and the volume of social workers, I don't remember one social worker, and I also don't remember the people's homes that I went to as a child. Does that happen to you? Do you remember them vividly? Do you not remember them?
I can't remember any of my social workers. I can't remember any of my guardian ad litems. I can remember one big brother, big sister program. I remember one worker because I was a teenager and she was just smoking hot. So I remember her first name. I remember her first name. And I remember most of my foster families. Well, I remember where it was, but I can't remember the first one. I can picture the house. I can picture them. I can't remember their names. And the same with the second one. I know about where they are, but I can't remember, what their names were. But then the next 3 I remember quite well.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I try and reconnect to it, I've got no sense of who they were, where they were, why I was there. All I was knowing.
I mean, I go back and I touch on some of these memories, and I just know my body's like, why do you want to go back there? Why do you want to relive that? That was terrible. Don't do that.
Yeah, and that's another good, interesting point, actually, is that actually we don't need to go back necessarily all the way and deep into to heal and recover. It's not necessary, but I think some of the more traditional therapies, they go right deep into it and re-traumatize the client without realize, well, I think they must do it intentionally.
Talk therapy is great, except for when you're dealing with serious trauma. You force the person to relive the trauma every time you talk about it. You've got things like EMDR where they use their fingers and you don't have to necessarily remember anything or speak about anything. And then you've got things like plant medicine and all sorts of interesting things. I got connected to someone, they had some plant medicine, it cured them of their PTSD instantly.
Sounds
But there
like
was a side effect. Emotionally, it brings you back to the point before the trauma. And I'm like, that's going to be great. I'm going to be like 3 again. It's going to be wonderful. Be a toddler running around my house. My wife will be like, get back over here, mister.
So with all of this drama playing out in your life, how did it show up when you were an adult? What were some of the consequences that you experienced?
Ooh, I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Consequences. I ran my mouth quite a bit, and I know a lot of young men suffer from foot and mouth disease. But I thought I was really being funny most of the time. Turns out I was just being a dick, and I'm still kind of a dick, but I'm nicer about it, I guess. I don't know. It's definitely interesting, like, because moving around so many times, you learn how to really make friends fast. But I never learned how to like maintain friendships. So like I can hang out with somebody, meet them, hang out for a weekend or two, and then like it's like, dude, we're gonna hang out or something. Like you haven't texted you in 6 months. I'm like, oh, like I don't know. Like, am I supposed to do that? So every time I change locations, it's like my brain like hard resets. And like we've got friends right down the street here that we hang out with all the time. We went to Baltimore for a week, came back. I haven't talked to him in 2 weeks. We used to see him like every day. But since I've been back, I've got to like retrain. Like I have friends here. Like I can go see them. I can make plans with them. It's just never top of mind. I have to like really work on not forcefully, purposefully maintaining relationships.
Yeah, I think that is it's definitely something that I've experienced. Apart from I was really much more aggressive. I would let people get closer than I would do everything in my power to push them away. So they get closer, then I'd be like, I'd do something, sabotage it somehow, but I would do something and they would just disappear. So it's almost like two sides of the coin, isn't it? There's a gentler way of doing it, and mine was just full on anger. Get out of my space. I mean, my partner, I've been with mode. Sorry.
Supreme jerk mode or drama.
Well, I guess if that's what you learn, I mean, 50 moves and that level of rejection, abandonment, all of the issues that play into that, it's not surprising that we then have to really consciously think about, how am I actually going to maintain this relationship? Because I've got a handful of friends, and that's probably because I haven't learned how to maintain relationships for long periods of time. I've learned to be a bit of a loner, like my own company, because I haven't learned how to trust or develop that relationship for more than a month.
I just forget they exist.
Yeah.
Like I went through earlier this year and I kind of unfollowed everyone on Facebook because I realized I was putting like between 4 and 10 hours a day just stuck scrolling through.
Wow.
Which there's some good stuff in there. You can connect with people and you interact and you're on their posts and stuff. But I was like, how much time am I spending on this thing? And I had to go through, and with a podcast or a business, you have to be a creator instead of a consumer. And I went and unfollowed people. I didn't have a friend, but I unfollowed them. So my newsfeed, I load it and be the same. And I get bored right away and I go back to doing something more productive. But like, I forget these people all exist. People that I see all the time, like they never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And what's really frustrating, and this is probably the first time I'm going to admit this like publicly, like I forget about the people that live in my house. If I don't see them on a regular basis, they just don't exist to me anymore. And I'm not saying that to be mean or hurtful to my wife or my kids, but if I don't see you on a regular basis, you're just not taking up any room in this real estate up here.
Wow, that's really fascinating. It's such a level of detachment that we seem to have learned. Okay, let's if it's okay, let's dig a little bit deeper because I feel like I can.
I feel like I gave you that idea before we started recording.
Yeah. I could try to be more disagreeable, but it's really not working. I just can't. I wonder if they're like not changing the subject slightly because I have a habit of doing this. But I'll dive into it while it's in my brain. Now I've forgotten. Crap. No. There's a similarity here between the level of detachment that we've learned from 50 foster placements. I think I've had over 38. I can't remember how many. To me also being agreeable. They are skills that we've learned to survive, and they've been so hardwired into us that it takes a great deal of conscious thought. Like you said earlier, you have to think about maintaining relationships. It's a conscious piece of work. You have to do it intentionally, otherwise it would never get done. So it's like me being agreeable is how I would survive when I was in care. I would be agreeable to survive. What are your thoughts?
It's interesting because I'm trying to think about a time where I really try to maintain relationships. I've done it a couple times, but the first time I really was consciously doing it, I was going to University of Oklahoma. And on the way down to school, it was early morning, I'd listen to music. On the way home, I would get out the address book and I would find someone and start calling people to kind of, keep that bridge, keep that relationship going. Because I had quite a long drive. Now I've kind of replaced that with audiobooks on my commute. So occasionally I call people. If I'm on a long road trip by myself, I'm calling you. Like I'm going through my book, I'm calling people in there. I want to interact and catch up and figure out what's going on and share with what I'm doing. But if I don't set aside time specifically to maintain relationships, I forget people exist. If you're listening to this right now and I forgot you exist, I'm sorry.
Not personal.
Phones, email, Facebook, they go both ways. Feel free to contact me.
Do you think if you really focused in on, of course, if you wanted to, if you really focused in on maintaining relationships, is that something that would interest you, or is it still something that, nah, I'm okay, actually. I'm not missing out on anything?
That's an interesting thing. I've been really focused on like podcasting and nonprofits and building a business and stuff over the last 2 years. And I find that if you're not talking about one of those things, I have a hard time caring about the conversation. Unless you're like in my inner circle, and then I'm willing to put up with some more, frivolous conversations. Like if we just met or whatever, and all you want to talk about is sports and the weather, like I've already forgotten who you are. I'm not interested in the slightest. If we don't have an already built relationship and you're not talking about anything that has any value in my world, I don't even know who you are 2 seconds after you walk out.
Snap, can't do small talk. Can't do it.
I can, but it's very limited. Like it has to be very relevant to what's going on. But small talk it has almost no value in my life. You know what I mean? It's just like anyone that has drama. Like I am not interested in whatever problem you created for yourself that you're now upset about. I don't care. If this house that we've created is a drama-free zone. I've got friends, I've got family that are just not welcome here because I'm not interested in all your problems. Now, if you're having a bad day, that's one thing. But if every time we talk, there's some new emergency that you created, I don't want you, I don't have time for you. Or they're assholes. You know what an asshole is?
An asshole.
There's someone that always asks your opinion and then always ignores it.
Oh yeah.
Those are assholes.
That sounds like my partner, but that's not the right thing to say.
If you do it like 2 or 3 times to me, like I'm not interested in continuing this conversation. I caught up with someone from my master's program, and we went and grabbed lunch, and she was telling me how there's people out to get her and they're monitoring her house and this and all sorts of just crazy stories. She's like, what's going on with you? I'm like, well, I'm really working hard to keep, people with abundance in my life, and people are scarcity and survival. They're not, getting a lot of space here, and no drama I like, this is a drama-free zone. And then she continues to tell me about all her drama. And then she's like sending me a message. She's like, why haven't we hung out again? I told you exactly why while we hung out that last time, that it's a drama-free zone. She didn't get it, and that's okay. But like, I don't have room for that in my life.
Two things. When I work with my clients, I have this rule, and it's called no stinking thinking. It's not allowed, it can't be tolerated, and we learn ways to deal with it. I will not tolerate it because it just doesn't help your mental health whatsoever. Keeps you just stuck in that perpetual loop of drama, as you said. And the other thing was that sorry, I'm looking all over the place. I'm thinking one of the things I realized when I was writing the book was that I threw all my energy into work because it met so many needs. It paid the bills. I was always worried about being homeless, so it paid the bills. So I knew I had to do it. It's met my needs emotionally because I could be detached, I could leave, I didn't have to sort of maintain relationships. And sort of what you were saying there, I felt there was like some, I can't say the word, some similar, can I find another word?
It's an escape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
if you're focused on this, you can ignore everything else because this has your attention. This is important. And you can just kind of let all the other stuff go. Like I was really big into movies and video games growing up, and that obsessions crossed over to my adult life because I could go focus on a video game or a movie and escape from all of my problems because I was in the movie, I was in the moment, or I was in the game, and nothing else even existed. I could hyper focus onto that world. And that's something that's crossed over to my adult life. There's some like mobile games I play on my phone, and apparently it's not okay to play them all the time. So I've heard anyway.
A bit like Facebook, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. I hate them as a company, really dislike them as a company, but I can't stay off it. This is where historically,
they're not even Facebook anymore. They're Meta. Did you hear about this?
Oh, I read something this morning, but I didn't have a clue what it was going on about. What is that?
Like the Facebook company, like Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp and all this stuff. It's now Meta. Meta owns Facebook and Oculus and Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger. Whatever that means. We still know who you are, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. But do you know what? They're so clever at addiction. They are so smart at emotional addiction, because I'm definitely addicted. I confess, I'm addicted to Facebook. I need a social media manager, so I just don't go on it because God knows how much time I waste on that platform. I could be doing better things with my life.
There's ways to find out how long you're logged into Facebook every day.
I know there's an app. I got rid of it.
It told you all your secrets and you didn't want to hear it no more.
Yeah.
You're not ready for that kind of accountability yet, are you?
It's really fascinating talking to you, because we seem to have so learned behavior, ways of doing things that is, I really think, a consequence of what we learned with all the moves, all the drama, that being, I mean, I was definitely, I don't know about you, but institutionalized within the care system. And that has followed me through my whole adult life, which has impacted on my mental health and emotional well-being over the years without me even realizing what was going on.
You see, so I couldn't tell you how long I spent in the foster care system, because between moving in with different family members in foster care, I don't think I spent too long in foster care, but those were the times where I actually got a peek at what life should look like. Fortunately for me, I was never in a bad foster home. I had loving, caring foster parents everywhere I went. Some different rules, but like that was the most stable that I ever was. So foster care for me was very educational and good for me. to
That's
see
great.
what a balanced situation should look like. And I know not everyone
Yeah.
has that same experience, and I really feel that sucks for those guys. Really sorry to hear that, but for me, it was wonderful. It was the only chance I had in some of my times. Um, like the last time I was in foster care, I think it was 14 or 15. And the next time a situation arose, I moved out of my mom's house in with my grandmother and said, if you love me, you're just not going to say anything about it. You're just going to let it happen. She never did. She never said nothing about it. And
Wow.
that was when I was able to start making, my own life. I moved out at 16. And now I'm 39. Dun, dun, dun. I can't wait till I hit 51 that I'll have average less moves than years I've been alive.
What caused all of the moves?
My mother suffers from bipolar disorder,
Okay.
and she has a few psychotic features, which are hallucinations, which are normally schizophrenia, but in this case, also in the bipolar for her. And every time she needed treatment, she would go into the hospital, and my sister and I would go live with another family member or into foster care or with different family members. And she got sick all the time. And the two murder attempts is actually my sister trying to kill me and my mom trying to kill me.
Wow. So your sister, was it passed down from your mom to your sister?
She was diagnosed at 9, which is
Wow.
very early by most standards, but the amount of trauma and the bizarre behavior she had, it was very obvious. She has not accepted that diagnosis. Like if you ask her, she'd be like, I do not have any of that stuff. But her behavior would indicate otherwise.
Mm.
She's got 4 kids from 3 guys. She's on her 3rd husband. And she's younger than I am. She's been in jail several times. And this isn't me trying to air her dirty laundry, but there's just a whole host of just craziness that's still in her life. That's no longer in my life.
Are you still in contact with your mum, or you don't have contact?
I am. She has been working on herself for quite a long time. She was actually just here over the weekend. We live about 900 miles apart, so she flew in and hung out with the family for the weekend. And she had written a book about her trauma and some of her things, and we were talking about that. But even though our relationship is largely repaired, there's still a lot of pain in there.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. And I think it's okay for that pain to be there. It's part of who you are. It's I think as long as you're not getting emotionally triggered by it, all the time, you're not trapped in the emotion of it, then it's part of who you are. I hear a lot about, people saying that they've gotten over it, forgotten it, it's not part of them, but it's part of your personality. You can't escape it. It's part of who you are. I think it's part of the recovery process, part of the recovery journey.
It definitely is. And we almost look like the same person too. So it's almost like looking into like a future self, like what I'm going to look like in 22 years. I think she's ahead of me.
That must be a bit freaky.
A little bit. Yeah. We've got the same eyes. Like we both have a spot. Like I've got brown eyes. But there's like a spot where the pigment is kind of white. She's got the exact same thing, and her mom had it, and it's a genetic trait that's been passed down. Well,
Dad nowhere on the scene?
Dad is on the scene after, I think they got divorced when I was 3, and then when I moved out, he was finally allowed really back in my life, or was able to get close enough to the fire without getting burned anymore, because every time mom's around, it's a whole situation.
Exploded, I suspect.
Yeah, so they drive through here all the time, twice a year, and they stop for 3 to 5 days and hang out with us and the grandkids. And
oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice. So you do have some long-term relationships then?
Yeah, some, but like extended family, like that's tough because of whatever reason, relationships were damaged. When you have someone that has those kind of mental health problems, like it's hard to have a relationship with that kind of person. When you have unseen things, unseen medical conditions or mental health problems, like you look like a regular person, or you're not walking around with, 3 fingers missing, and you can obviously tell something's up. Like, you can't see these things. So you just like, oh, it's a regular person. And something happens, like, you say it's drama that I want in my life, and you throw it off to the side and you never build that relationship. And that's really kind of what I said earlier about where I'm at in life, because I'm just not interested. But those situations, and it took me a long time to understand, like, she really doesn't have control. There's things she can do to me mentally well most days. She can sleep right and get exercise and all the things you do to stay right. But even still, if different parts of the brain overproduce different types of, of the endocrine system, you might end up with your levels out of whack, and there you go, regardless of you taking your medication and all the good things you need to do.
Yeah. So how has what you've experienced with all that drama influenced what it is that you do now?
Well, I mean, that's the primary reason I got into what I do. There were so many different types of nonprofits that helped us growing up, different people, churches, nonprofits willing to help keep us sheltered, clothed, and fed, that when I was finally, I don't know, say over it, but when I finally got to a stable place in my life and felt like I could give back, I wanted to help. And I ended up joining a few nonprofit boards. I joined the Books by Vets and the Shine Foundation, and was really able to help, other people in that situation. And I got stationed over in the Kingdom of Bahrain, more on your side of the world, and was like, how am I supposed to keep doing all this fun nonprofit stuff? How am I supposed to stop, keep helping people? And someone's like, well, you kind of have a podcast voice. And I was like, oh, really? Do I? And, looked at the nonprofit shows that were out there and found that there wasn't really a how-to show. I mean, there was good shows, but no one was really telling you like how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And started the Nonprofit Architect podcast and brought that in, and have been, doing great. We got more than 100 episodes published. We've got some big time guests like Steve Sims and Bob Berg and Asha Curran. And I really started connecting with some people in the industry, and a lot of great fans that I have, great audience. I tell you what, they're always sending me messages and, hey, have you talked to this person yet? Let me introduce you to.
Oh, awesome.
I love it. Absolutely love it. But really able to help give back. And I joined the military. I'm still in active duty Navy. I've got 21 years of service in. So really my life has been about serving.
I've forgotten actually that you were in the Navy, the military. Was it the Navy?
It is the Navy.
Yeah. Can you remember what the tipping point was from the chaos that you experienced? Did you go into the Navy? You must have gone in quite young.
Yeah, I was 18 when I joined the Navy.
Yeah.
I graduated high school at 17, and I took a year to find myself.
Yeah.
And what I found is that the regular world sucked, and I needed some kind of something. I didn't have the best grades. I had a criminal record, our family name in town. Everyone, kind of knew who we were. Like, oh, so I had to find a way to get away from that and create my own life. And the Navy was that avenue for me.
How did that go? Because my perception of the Navy is that you're really close, you're buddies, you've got one another's backs, it almost feels like the opposite of what you're describing now.
It is much different. If you join the Navy and you go to a ship or go to a boat, like, all you have is the people that are there. You can't pick up the phone and call mom, right? You can't ask your best friend, your old best friend. You've got who you've got. You've got barbers, you've got firefighters, you got people that fix the plumbing. Everyone's on the ship, and there's no one else to go to. And that's one of the benefits of having a family, moving away from both spouses, moving away from both sets of parents, because you have to rely on each other. And so fortunately for us, I got married. My wife and I are both from Minnesota, and then we moved to California, which is, I don't know, 20 some hours away, and airfare prices, 20 years ago and all those things, like, it's it. You got each other, and you've got the people that you've got in the squadron with you, and that's your options. Figure it out. So if you're listening to this and you're not really liking the people you're around and the people you grew up with, or your spouse and your whoever parents are there, like, get away, figure out how to survive on your own without the crutch that you've had your whole life. Like, that getting away really had a lot to do with it. You've got to be with the people that you're around, and that's it.
Do you think that acted as, I can imagine it must have been quite tough for you, given what you've gone through, and then being with a group of people that you can't escape from, was it therapeutic in a way?
It was a lot of good for me. The Navy has given me more gifts than I can probably count. But having the ability to not, completely escape my past, because there's still stuff that we carry with us, but allowed me, no one knows who my family was. No one cares if I'm rich or poor or anything else. They don't care all the stuff that I've done. If I show up ready to work and I contribute, right, be a good dude, that's it. Most everything is covered.
Awesome.
And unless you're willing to share some of that stuff, like, no one will even know.
Yeah.
So you can really create your own world.
Did it not come out in your personality though? Did it not come out in, I don't know, when you were in a group of people and you might have felt uncomfortable, did it not seep out at all?
I'm sure it did. There was a lot of, I used to try to like jump into every conversation and try to like fit in. And then people are like, you have no experience in whatever they're talking about. Like, why are you talking about it? I was like, I don't know. Isn't that what people do? And you get a little guidance along the way. Like, well, if you don't really have experience, like real world, maybe just listen. You don't have to be in every conversation and active, and listening is an important skill too. And, it doesn't sink in the first time you hear that, but you start getting little things, and you start understanding what it's like to like have confidence with somebody, instead of just as soon as you get some information, you're out telling everybody and gossiping. You start learning all these little things, and eventually they crafted and created a much different person than I was 20 years ago.
That's absolutely awesome. I'll let you into a little secret. Don't tell anyone. I tried to join the army when I came out of care. I tried to join the army, but they wouldn't have me. They told me I was too thick. So I'm dyslexic. So when I did the test, they were like, sorry, you're late. We can't have you. You can't, you're just, and they actually said I was too thick. They weren't polite about it. If there was no, oh, you're dyslexic. No, it's not for you. It was like, no, you're too thick. Piddle off. Okay. Thanks. Which was probably a good thing, because I think the way I reacted to things was very aggressively. I think it would have been I think it would have crushed me. I don't think I would have fitted in at all.
Well, I can do what I'm told. I can do what you need me to do. There's some things you experience, you're not sure how to handle or react to something, because you just don't know. Right. Like, I remember like trying to date in high school, and then like the girl's friend would come tell me something, and like had no idea, because I had no one to ask. I didn't have a lot of friends. You end up moving around so many times, 36 times before I graduated high school. Like, you just don't know things.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I go pick up the girl, but I've got my buddy with me, and he's in the front and she's in the back. And then you get told the next day, like, get hit in the shoulder. You're like, your girl's got to go up front. Like, I had no idea. I literally had no idea. So, they learn something. You're like, oh, next time you pick them up, girl goes in the front, or you don't bring your buddy with, or whatever, but, people have always been willing to tell me where I've messed up, which is super helpful. It also is super helpful that I occasionally, but most of the time, I don't get all bent out of shape. Time someone was to say, hey man, you're kind of a little out there, or this isn't quite right, or you're kind of being was able to listen. Most of my jerkiness and running my mouth wasn't solved until there's a new guy that checked in, and I thought this guy was just off the rails. I'm like, how can anyone behave that way? And then someone was like, hey, he's just like you. I'm like, oh, that's how everyone sees me. I didn't know. You don't know until someone shares it with you. And then I looked at, who I was hanging around, and what, the trajectory of their career, their lives, or their path. And I was like, well, I guess I don't know the right things to say. So I just stopped saying much of anything. The conversation would tee me up where I could, hit some foul comment out of the park, and everyone would look at me like, you don't got nothing to say? I'm like, nope, I don't got nothing to say. And they're kind of like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm like, I'm just realizing that I'm not the kind of person that I thought I was. And I changed the people I was hanging around with. And I started looking for people that were focused on their career, focused on their families and following Christ, and focused on their education and doing good things. And once I changed the people I hung around with, my life took a whole nother trajectory. It's just off the charts, and was
That's
able
a
to
really, really great point.
yeah.
And again, I think it's part of the recovery process, is that you start to relearn. You just start over again. You start to relearn how to have conversations, how to interact with people. And that space gave you that, which is fantastic. And it sounds like they were so used to dealing with that sort of dynamic that it was in the blood. It was why it was so strong, why those, Navy, Army are so incredibly strong, because it's how it gels together. It seems just to be how it works.
Yeah, as different as people are, we all care about the same things. I went to the Middle East and I wasn't sure what to expect. Turns out there's people over there. There's families with little kids that are screaming in the mall, just like in the US. They want to have a relative measure of success. They want to be reasonably safe. They want their kids to do well. It's the same everywhere. If you go on Google Maps and Google Earth, and you go to some of these places that people are really have an opinion on, like Cuba or Iran or North Korea, I zoomed into Iran and I found where they had a carnival and kids were carrying around big stuffed animals. I'm like, we've got carnivals in the US. They've got carnivals in Iran. Like, you keep the politics out of it, and maybe some of the religion, and people pretty much get along no matter where you're at in the world.
Yeah. I think if you can get back to that, get rid of the fear, basically. Get rid of the fear. The level of fear and that emotional response, that pull you get when you hear about those countries, because you've all been programmed with crap from the media.
Well, this is something that I did when I was over in Bahrain. We had a bunch of coalition partners. We have 30 some different nations. And I always asked them, I was like, hey, what do you think about America and the American president at the time? And some people answer right away, and some people are like, they didn't want to answer. And I'm like, no, I'm just interested because, when I get news from overseas, I only get like the worst news. Like, is that true for you? Like, do you only get like the worst news coming out of America? And they're like, yes, everything coming out of America is just the most terrible news. And I'm like, well, do you really think like everything is that bad? And they're like, well, now that you mention it, like you asked, like the differences of how we're handling COVID. America has 330 million people, but it's also this gigantic expanse of land area. And, we have different ways of responding to this pandemic, like everyone else does. But the area that I'm in has been open for more than a year. My kids were in school in person all last year, all this year. And people are like, really? That's weird. That's not what I'm seeing, in the news. And you're like, well, by the way, do you know which country has the best news?
No.
New Zealand has the best news. If you want to get yourself a good laugh or a good kick, check out New Zealand's news. National news headlines includes like Farmer Bob's sheep come back after 3 years, like it needs to be cured. Politician says something bad about everyone's favorite cat, and then the politician has to write a retraction about the bad stuff he said about. Best news. You want to enjoy your news cycle? Check out New Zealand's National Zoo. I got a friend there. He sends me top headlines every now and again. They're glorious. Front page, you get like the kitten story. It's like hilarious.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look now, because I'm so over the news. It's so unhealthy.
Yeah, I can't follow most of it. I can read some news articles, but I have to check like 3 or 4 news sources because you never know who's leaving what out.
Yeah.
And if they're not linking the original video or the original transcript or the whatever, like you already know they're just interested in telling you how to feel instead of actually giving you the news.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as you said, it's show news. You describe, I can't remember what word you use, show news.
Newstainment.
Newstainment. Yeah, it's what
Yep.
it's what it's turned into. Which is well, okay, completely different subject altogether. So how would you describe your relationship with trauma?
I don't know. You get like a multiple choice. Can I pick one? Can I pick from the list?
You can say what it's your perspective.
I don't know. I know I don't want anymore. I know that for sure. I've had my fill. I don't need any more trauma. I don't know. It's an interesting thing because like right now, I know this about myself. I kind of have an annual cycle of how I'm feeling. And when it gets into the fall, the autumn, I start feeling a little bit more depressed, a little bit more anxious about just about everything. So right now I'm getting into that and I'm aware of it. This is the first year I'm really aware of how it's affecting me. So because I'm aware of it, I can take some of those feelings and be, nice try, anxiety. It's just your time of the year. Go get in the corner. I don't need you, nice try, depression. Do I always get it right? Do I always catch it right away? I don't, but at least I'm aware of it. So that's helpful.
Yeah, it's a great thing as well that you're able to separate and see it and separate it for something in its own right. It's the problem for me is when so I talk about it as the traumatized mind. And when I was experiencing trauma, if you just imagine you've got a circle, when I was experiencing trauma, my real personality would be tiny and the rest of the circle would be just all trauma. And then as I started to decrease it, my personality got bigger. And it feels like what you're describing is your anxiety and your trauma has become that little circle, but every now and again it starts to grow. And if you allow it to feed itself, it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So by you going, pack it in, I know what this is, you're bringing it, even though it's expanded, you're bringing it back down again. So it's more manageable, which is brilliant. I always think it's like getting sucked into a black hole and you're crawling your way out, and then all of a sudden you go, there I am. Oh, that was depression. Oh, that was anxiety. Oh yeah, caught it, got ya.
Yeah, if I get too busy and I've said yes to too many things and I find myself kind of rushing to catch up, you can get overwhelmed, and all of a sudden, those feelings start pouring in. Like I'm getting ready to retire from the Navy here in March and trying to figure out my new career path and what I'm doing next. And I've been working on a few things that haven't really materialized the way I want them to yet. So I'm kind of in this flux zone, in the in between. And can I make it off of my retirement stuff with no other income? I can. I don't want to. It's nice to have some more cash coming in. But even though I know I will be fine, it's like, but I don't know, am I still going to be able to do the podcast? And then what about this stuff? And what if this happens? And then pretty soon you start getting yourself behind. Yeah.
I don't know, do you know those things, they're like a toy and they're a circle, but they're very integral and you can pull them out. You pull them back in again. It's like that.
Yeah.
It's almost got a heartbeat. Ooh. Right, one final question, if that's okay. And that is the relationship with your partner, with your wife, with your beloved wife. When you started that relationship, did you find any difficulties around maintaining it, keeping it going, or did it just flow quite naturally?
There was a lot of bumps in the road. We didn't really argue too much, but we definitely understood that that we weren't speaking the same language. Or when anyone gets married, you have all of these unknown expectations. You have these expectations you have no idea exist until you're forced to be with someone full time. So like growing up with either a single parent or in foster care, you know, whatever needs to get done, like you have to do it. Right? There's no other option. You got to do it. And she grew up on a farm with her grandparents on the same property and her parents in the house, and she had 3 sisters. And mom kind of took care of the inside stuff and the shopping, and dad took care of the garage and the outdoor stuff. So she would tell her dad something like, "Hey, Dad, I need an oil change," and he would just do it, because that's just kind of how their dynamic was.
Mm.
Well, we were married and we were living in California. And she's like, "Hey, I need an oil change," and in my head, I'm like, "Sounds like you better go get your oil changed. Why are you telling me? Like, go get it done. Like, you have my permission to go get your oil change." You know, but like I had no idea. Like, I didn't understand that what she expected, and she didn't know that was an expectation or where it came from, and I didn't know. You know, and you've got things like, and women just in general don't ever say what they mean. Like, "Hey, we're getting low on milk." All right, guys, if you're listening, that means go get milk. I didn't know it either. I'm telling you now, it means go get milk. It's like, that sucks. Sounds like you're not going to have milk in the morning. No, it means you go get milk, man. Like, like trying to figure that stuff out. But there's still a lot, you know, there's still things that pop up from trauma. And she's like, "Wait, why do you behave this way for this reason? Like, what happened?" And like, I don't know why. And then you have to explore like why that was the reaction, why you feel that way, why you think that way. And if you don't explore those things, you're going to find yourself at an impasse where you can't go any farther in a relationship until you explore what these things are. And we've been married for more than 20 years, and I don't know if we've got it figured out, right? We're still figuring stuff out all the time. But if you throw in the towel, it's going to be over. But if you keep wanting to explore and figure stuff out with the person that you're with, you're going to be able to get through it.
It's incredible, isn't it? Considering we've been through so much shit, both of us. I've been with Steve, you know, just over 20 years. You've been with your partner 20 years. And we function. Oh God, no, that's not right. That's not right. We are able, as much as we think we can't, or we don't do it well enough, or whatever we've got going on in our head. We obviously do, because we've been with our partner. You said you've got kids. I was always too frightened to have children. But we absolutely can maintain relationships. I think as long as they don't come with, in our perception of BS, of drama.
Yeah. I mean, luckily for me, I got a farm girl who is loyal, is going to get the stuff done, very dedicated to whatever she's doing. Great qualities that I didn't always have. You know, I didn't need to have them. They weren't something that was imbued in my lifestyle, in my life. So the fact that she has those were very helpful, especially when trying to figure out what the heck we were doing. You know, because here's the deal, like, no one has any idea what they're doing. Just because you have parents doesn't mean there's some magical creature that knows how to do all this stuff. Parents are going to mess you up, no matter if they have bipolar disorder or not, because there's something that they haven't figured out and they haven't fixed. They're just people trying to figure stuff out. I know there's people out there listening like, "Yeah, my mom can't even go get eggs every week. She ain't got to figure it out yet." There's no magic age where you have certain things accomplished. There isn't.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people that are able to go right out of high school, go right into university, continue on their master's, get their PhD before they're 30. I didn't start college till I was 29. You know, that wasn't my path. I've got my master's done now. I've been thinking about a doctorate, but I'm not sure how it would help me or why I would get one, other than if I have my doctorate, then every appointment I make is a doctor's appointment, whether it's a golf tee time or, you know, drinking with the friends. "Oh, I got a doctor's appointment. I got to go. You can't ask me about it because it's a doctor's appointment." Other than saying that, you know, I don't have any particular drive to get a doctorate right now. But I mean, with, you know, the Navy or marriage or your mental health journey, if you don't quit, you win.
And there's something in there that you just said about not knowing. And for all of us, there is such a knowledge gap around so much that we don't know about, or what we perceive to be true or real isn't necessarily true or real because we're just seeing it through our perspective. It's always about seeking, isn't it? It's always about learning, seeking, never giving up, never surrendering. I mean, we are classic examples. When shit happens, we have literally just got back up, and we've got back up, and we've got back up, and we've got up a bit more. We're still getting back up. It's it's life is hard, whether you've been knocked down 50 times or 100 times, but even if it's just one time, life is hard. But it's that quest for finding out a new way, finding out new information, and continuing on that quest, and not settling for what people tell you to settle with or for.
Think about how dumb the average person is, and then realize 3.5 billion people are dumber than that person. And some of those people are giving you advice and you're listening to it.
Don't.
Almost no one's got it figured out.
Yeah.
And what are the chances that they're going to have the time to tell you about it if they do get it figured out? Oh, I'm worried about what the neighbors think. Don't. The neighbors never had a real thought in their entire lives.
Yeah.
What makes you think the thought they're going to have about this is going to be the one that really sticks?
Yeah. Don't get hooked in on somebody else's drama, as you said. It's like you can't go anywhere with it. But it's always an emotional trigger. And it's that, where's that emotional trigger coming from?
Here's the deal. Everything that I've done, I've been terrified to do. Join the military, terrified. Got to leave home. Got to move away. Oh, got to go to boot camp. I'm going to get yelled at. Got to go to the school in some other state. I got to move again. Terrified. Oh, you're going to live in California, 1,000 miles away from the closest person that you've ever met. Terrified. Oh, and now you're going to get married. Terrified. I didn't have a good example of that. Oh, hey, guess what? You guys are pregnant. Terrified. I don't know what it's like to be a parent. Oh, hey, you got promoted. I don't know how to do this next thing that I got promoted to do. I'm terrified. Well, I'm going to go to school full time. Well, the last time I was in school, I was terrible at it. And now I got to do all this stuff. And it's college. I got to walk all over the dang place every time I go anywhere. Terrified. I got commissioned and I went to flight school. I'm like, I don't know how to fly an airplane. Like, how am I supposed to figure this stuff out? And you do. And then you go to SEER school where they kidnap you and torture you and beat you up. And like, how am I supposed to pass this thing? I went skydiving with my buddy Red that was just here playing games at the house. Terrified. The door opened up. I was like, what am I doing? Do the thing. I didn't know what I was doing when I started a podcast, and now I got a podcast. I didn't know what I was doing when I joined the Navy. I joined the Navy. I didn't know what I was doing when I got married. Now I'm married. You're never going to know. It's always going to be scary. Do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Don't settle for what somebody else tells you, ever. I don't think. Travis, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. If you're in your trauma right now, get help. If you're past your trauma, it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility to get healing and take control of your life and move forward. No one else is going to do it for you. No one else can do it for you.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to concur. I'm going to do that thing where I agree, which I'm trying to stop doing, but you give so much great content. How can I not?
It's hard to disagree with me.
Thank you so much for your time, Travis. Oh, before I go, what's your business? What do you do?
I host the Nonprofit Architect podcast, helping you build stronger nonprofits. We interview nonprofit leaders, business leaders, consultants, all with the effect to help you do it better. If you love the podcast and love what you're hearing, we're going to help you get started. We've got a guide to help you do all that stuff. Give us a note. Connect with me. Go to nonprofitarchitect.org. Check out some of the stuff we've got. It's not just my stuff. I've got nonprofit shows. I've got veteran hosted shows. All in all, I think there's some 56 shows on my channel. Figure out if it's not me, find someone else you want to hear from that's going to speak into your life And you can always find me at Nonprofit Architect on whatever social media channel. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you, see where you're at in the world. And I'm always loving to meet new people.
I'll put the details below, of course, where you can get email, website, podcast link of Travis. Travis, thank you so much for your time today. I've really appreciated talking to you.
Thanks a lot, Wendy. Appreciate it.